Hi everyone, Rachael here. Welcome to episode number 33 of the Ditch the Diet podcast. So thank you so much for tuning in today. Before I get started on today's podcast, I just wanted to check with you if you're actually subscribed yet to the podcast, because a lot of you are listening and downloading the podcast every week, but you haven't actually subscribed on iTunes yet or wherever you listen to the podcast. So I wanted to just ask you before I get into it to subscribe to the podcast. It makes a big difference for the ratings in places like iTunes and things like that. And I'm really trying hard at the moment to get the podcast out to more people, because the more people that can listen to the podcast, the more people that I can help. So it would be awesome if you could subscribe and even just share this with someone that you think might benefit from it. So thank you very much for that. And let's get into today's show. So in today's show, I'm just going to share with you a little bit of insight that I got from an event that I was at last weekend in Newcastle. I don't have any guests today, it's just me. It's going to be a nice short show, hopefully, nice short episode. And I want to talk to you about something that I learned at the weekend in Newcastle. I went to a seminar and I found it so interesting that I thought I would share it on the podcast and kind of talk you through a little bit about why I found it so interesting and why I found it so helpful. So recently I have personally been having some mental health struggles. If you follow me on social media, I did make a post about this on my personal profile a few weeks ago. And I've been struggling with depression. I used to have very, very bad anxiety. I've kind of overcome that now and I know how to manage it, but I seem to have developed depression. And I don't really have a problem with telling people that. Because I know it's pretty commonplace these days, and it's not quite as taboo a subject as it was before. And so being a bit of a solutions person myself, I don't really like to dwell on problems for too long. So I ended up asking for help. And it just so happened that I had already booked this seminar in Newcastle that I've just been to at the weekend there. So I pushed myself to go. I could quite easily have not gone, by the way, but I did push myself to go, and I'm really glad that I did go after all. And it was I don't really like, or I don't love using the word mindset, because what does that even mean? But it was a sort of mindset based seminar and workshop, and it was to help people really with anxiety and depression, and other sort of mental health issues, or even just overwhelmed and stressed business owners as well, to learn sort of coping mechanisms and strategies to overcome this, sort of out with the realms of medical doctors. And I'm all for sort of learning new strategies to deal with depression and anxiety. So I went along, it was with an amazing guy called Paul Mort, who some of you may have heard of. Paul is someone that I've known for about 5 or 6 years now, and he actually helped me to develop the business that I have now, Walk the Talk Life, which is why you're listening to this podcast. And one of the things that stuck with me from Sunday's workshop was when Paul spoke about measuring your progress, and changing the way that you think about your progress and what you have achieved and what you still have to achieve. And this can kind of be related across to things like weight loss and fitness goals and health goals as well. And I don't know whether it's just particularly women, but I think we probably think more like this than men do, but that I don't want to make sweeping generalisations. But we tend to focus on what we haven't achieved yet, rather than looking back at what we've already achieved. So if you start to think about, and I spoke about this to my Ditch the Diet Academy members last night in our live webinar, was a lot of the time we spend so much time focusing on all of the things that we haven't done yet, or that we haven't achieved, or how far we still have to go. And we don't actually look back at how far we've come. So this is something that really, really struck a massive chord with me, because I am an absolute nightmare for waking up in the morning and feeling instantly overwhelmed by all the things that I still haven't achieved and that I still haven't done. Now, I wasn't always like this, and I can't think of a pivotal moment in my life that I could say, this is when this happened and this is exactly when my attitude changed. I used to be quite a reflective person, able to look back at the past and see how far I have come. And I suppose it's just more of a recent thing with this sort of downward trend of my mental health. I started to look at my own business. I'm going to talk about my business here, because I'm going to talk to you a bit about what's happening here at the Ditch the Diet Academy as well. But you can sort of apply this to your own life in whatever way that you want. But I often think about all the things that I haven't achieved yet, and I've found myself also comparing myself to other people and other businesses in the fitness and nutrition industry, and sort of picking faults at myself and beating myself up. And that is really very counterproductive to what I'm trying to achieve. So after Sunday's seminar, I had a really busy day. Yesterday was Monday, if you're listening to this podcast in the future. Yesterday was Monday, and I had such a busy day. Mondays are really busy days for me, and I didn't really have very much time to sit down and digest all the information that I learned on Sunday. There was so much to take in. But I did have a couple of hours during the sort of late afternoon, and I just sat down and sort of looked through the notes that I took and really sort of, I suppose, thought about how far I've come as a business and as a person over the last, when did we start the business? 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, so 6.5 years ago. And I looked back and actually realised how far I've come, and it was really interesting. And I sat back, and it's not something that I feel very comfortable doing, but I sat back and I thought, do you know what, Rachel, you should be quite proud of yourself for what you've achieved. But that didn't last very long, because I found it really hard to be proud of myself, and I'm just putting that out there and being honest. So I thought in today's podcast I would reflect on that and sort of try to help you reflect on this as well. So if you have specific goals in your life, maybe you're growing a business, maybe you want to lose weight, maybe you have health issues that you're trying to resolve, perhaps you're training for a big event, or you just want to improve your fitness. I wanted to tell you a little bit of the sort of backstory of my business and how I started it and what it looked like 6.5 years ago in January 2012. And sort of bring you as quickly as I can. I'll try not to ramble too much. Bring you up to date on what's happening now, and also what's going to be happening over the next few months, because there's going to be some big changes. So I'm going to run you through. I'm going to go back to January 2012 and tell you how it all began, and I'll bring you right up to date, and then we'll focus on what's going to happen over the next few months. So back at the end of 2011, sort of beginning of 2012, I worked in a gym for the local authority. I worked, I had a really lucky sort of job actually in a gym. I worked Monday to Friday from 7 a.m. till 3 p.m. So I worked a permanent day shift in the gym Monday to Friday. Now, anybody out there that knows about gym instruction jobs will know that is very unusual. And so I was very lucky to have that. But I found that I spent most of my time cleaning treadmills, mopping treadmills, hoovering the gym, and just basically cleaning. Now, I don't mind doing that stuff, actually. I'm quite obsessive about cleaning. So, I could get lost for hours hoovering the gym and the studio, and cleaning the mirrors and all that kind of stuff. But it got to a point where anytime I really did try to sort of let my personality shine through, sort of start to help people on a one-to-one basis, and really sort of speaking to people in the gym. I always used to get in trouble for it, and I would end up in the manager's office. Me being me, I've got quite a strong personality, and I do not like to conform. So I realised very quickly that I wasn't really going to fit in too well in a job of employment. So I decided to sort of rack my brains and think, right, okay, what can I do to get out of this job but also still be able to pay my rent and my bills? And at the same time, me and my ex, we were both, well, I still am, I don't know about her, we were both fitness instructors for the local authority. We lived together, and we decided we were going to start a business, a personal training business. And we sat on the sofa one afternoon and we thought, right, okay, let's go, we're going to start a business. And so we were trying to decide on a name for the business, and neither of us could come up with anything very exciting. And I don't think I've told this story before. And we were listening to a Rihanna album. Rihanna, the singer, used to be slightly obsessed. And the album was called Talk That Talk, I think it was called, or Talk the Talk, or Talk That Talk, anyway, the album. And I picked it up and I just went, what about Walk the Talk personal training? And so Walk the Talk personal training was born at the end of 2011, just sort of beginning of 2012. And so from there, I got my old battered laptop out and started to design a logo myself. Now, I know it was only 6.5 years ago, but there was no such thing as, graphic designing programs that you could just use on the internet like there is now. So I have no idea how I did it, but I created the first ever logo. I'll try and find it and post it in the blog along with the show notes here. I'm not sure if I'll be able to find it, but I'll try. And then it all went tits up because my ex and I split up, and it was a very, very dramatic breakup. It was very traumatic actually as well. So we didn't really even get Walk the Talk personal training off the ground before that happened. I was still in employment at the time, so I hadn't quite left yet. And once the dust settled on that, I was left in our house by myself to sort of pay the rent by myself and all the bills, which was really hard on minimum wage, which is what you get paid when you're a gym instructor, or it used to be. I used to spend my shifts in the gym, sort of get my cleaning out of the way, and then I would go and sit underneath the fire exit stairs out the back with a notebook, and I literally plotted my plan of attack with Walk the Talk personal training whilst I was on shift in the gym. And I've never told anyone that either, but I used to get all my jobs done, do all my work that I was paid to do, and then go and sit underneath the fire exit stairs with a notebook, and I planned Walk the Talk personal training from there. There was a few events happened at work that I just wasn't getting on very well. I couldn't connect with anyone, and so I decided one day that I would just hand my notice in. So I handed my notice in, I went up to my locker, cleared everything out, and left. And I shit you not, I had 76 pence in my bank account. And I remember it very, very clearly. I'm laughing, but it actually wasn't really that funny at the time. The reactions that I got when I told my family that I had quit my job, and anyway, so that was that. And I can tell you right now, when you're in a position like that, the motivation to get out of discomfort and away from that sort of pain is so high. And this is another thing that I learned at Paul's seminar the other day, is that in order to create massive change, you need to be shifting away from huge pain. And the huge pain that I was in was that I had just had a really traumatic breakup. I had just quit my job and I had no money, and I had a house that it cost a fortune in rent and bills. So I created Walk the Talk personal training, and fast forward a couple of years, it became Walk the Talk Fitness, because I started to teach group fitness classes. I started a boot camp. And I was doing lots and lots of different things. So I had a MetaFit boot camp. I was doing some nutrition coaching, even though I wasn't really qualified yet. I was doing some one-to-one work. I was teaching Les Mills classes, body pump, body attack, that kind of thing. I was doing the odd shift sort of at various different gyms. Oh, it was mad. I was all over the place. I was doing loads of different things. And I was just sort of scraping by. There were a few weeks where my mum had to give me money to buy my shopping, my food shopping at the time. I don't know if she'll remember that, but I can remember it being tough times in the beginning. And from there, I sort of all the while been struggling with my mental health and with my physical health, with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. So in 2013, sort of early 2013, I came across another podcast, the Coomber Radio, which is, if you go back to episode 2 of this podcast, I had been on my podcast, which is pretty awesome. And I heard a podcast about gut health, and this is where I started to get interested in nutrition. Long story short, a year later in 2014, I did my first nutrition course with the Nutrition Academy, Association for Nutrition. Then I went on to do a qualification with the BTN Academy, Body Type Nutrition. And then I started another business called Ditch the Diet with Ben and Ben Gray, two Bens and me, and a few other coaches dotted around the country. And we spent the best part of 18 months, I think it was, roughly, maybe nearer 2 years, working on the business, Ditch the Diet, to which in the end, unfortunately, it didn't work out at the time, but it just wasn't the right time. And at this time, I was still doing all of my little bits and pieces. So I was still doing my group fitness classes. I was still running my nutrition education. I was still doing a lot of one-to-one client work in the gym. And I was all over the place, no joke. I was exhausted. I was working from 6 a.m. in the morning until like 10, 11 at night. And that was just with client-facing things. And then I had all my admin to do and all that kind of stuff. It was mad. In 2014, I came across Paul Mort, who is the guy whose seminar I was at on Sunday in Newcastle. And Paul basically, and I don't say this very easily, and I don't take these kind of statements, this is not something that comes out of my mouth very often, but Paul really did. He helped me so much. In fact, I owe a lot of what I do now to Paul and what he taught me. But not only what he taught me and the tools that he gave me for my business, but also because I actioned all of that. I took action. I worked my butt off. Because I went to Paul and I said, I want to train people online because I want to be able to reach more people. I want to be able to help more people, but I have no idea where to start. I have no experience in online marketing. I have no experience in copywriting. I have no experience in how to do a website. My website at this point was utter shite. Like when I look back at what my website was like when we first started, it actually makes me cringe. It was really bad. But you have to start somewhere. And I joined Paul's monthly membership, which at the time I couldn't afford. It was £100 a month. And to me at that point in my life, it was so much money that I actually couldn't afford it. So I put it on a credit card. I'm really not into credit cards at all nowadays. But back then it was the only way I could see that I could do it. So that's what I did. And it was about... my concept of time is terrible, by the way, but I'm pretty sure it was a good 2 years I spent in Paul's membership, and I learned so much. It has taught me everything that I really need to know right up until this day. And so my online business was born. We were still called Walk the Talk Fitness, Walk the Talk Online Fitness. And then over the years, I sort of transitioned away from group exercise. I met a new partner, and that involved me moving to Manchester in 2015. I think it was 15, yeah. And when I moved to Manchester in 2015, I was forced to go fully online because I had to give up all of my work here in Scotland. I had to give up all of my one-to-one clients, all of my group fitness classes, and I moved to Manchester with nothing but a website, a couple of online clients, and no such thing as Transform 21, Ditch the Diet Academy, Declutter Your Diet. None of the courses that I have written and ran even existed in 2015. So I had to get creative, and I had to get creative very quickly. So that's when I started to create Transform 21, which back then didn't even have a name. When the first groups went through Transform 21, there was no such thing as T21. It didn't have a name. It was just called the 21 Day Programme. And again, when I look back, I think, oh my God, why didn't I just give it a name? That's so embarrassing. But I couldn't believe the success that I had with it. It was incredible, and something just lit up inside me, and I was like, this is what I need to do. This is how I can help more people. I can't physically do any more one-to-one work because there are not enough hours in the day. And so I decided to do more of these groups, and I was forced to do that because I had no income coming from offline work, and that basically paid my rent, paid my bills, and gave me great pleasure and great joy, and I absolutely loved it. I still love it to this day. It has grown so much since then. So at the same time as growing Transform 21, moving to Manchester, I also had to take on a part-time job to sustain myself. So I actually did telephone sales part-time when I lived there for the first year. And I also went back and did a bit of CrossFit coaching as well. And I hated my telephone sales job. I'm actually really good at telephone sales. Don't tell anyone that. I've got good banter. I'm really good at sales. But I hated every minute of it. But it was a means to an end. If you want to grow a business, sometimes you've got to strap on a pair of balls and just get it done. So I did that, and then Transform 21 grew arms and legs. I created a follow-on programme from that because a lot of people felt like they needed more help. So then we had the graduates programme, which was always, it never really got to a point where I really loved it, and it wasn't perfect. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I know things will never be perfect. And so I started to develop another programme, which has now become the Ditch the Diet Academy, and it's brand new to Walk the Talk Life and what I do here. Long story short, I'm now back in Glasgow. I've been back in Glasgow for a year and a half, and I've also done a bit of travelling as well. So in November last year, I went to Australia. I was there for 6 months. I got back about 2 months ago, and I came back and have just the business over the last 2 years has gone from strength to strength. Every year we are turning over more and more financially. We're helping more and more people all over the world, from America to Africa, all the way through Europe, Australia, New Zealand. It's incredible. And when I look back and I think to myself about the day that I was sitting in my living room in my old flat with my ex, and we were trying to come up with a business name. When I look back and I see how cringeworthy my old website used to be, when I look back and I think about how many hours I used to work in a week, about 65 hours, on the go all the time, exhausted, tired, my body was aching. I taught so many group fitness classes and I loved it, but it wasn't hugely fulfilling. And now when I look at how things are now, I have an online business, it's sustainable, it's amazing, it turns over great profits every year, I can live a really happy life. I'm helping hundreds of people instead of just a handful of people, and that to me is the most important thing that has come out of everything that I've ever done, is that I want to help people stop dieting, because I've been there, and you can have such a more fulfilling and happy existence and life when you learn how to quit dieting, because it's just not good for you at all. So over the last year, and while I was over in Australia doing a bit of soul searching and taking a bit of a sabbatical from life, as I like to call it, I created and built a whole brand new website with the help of an ex-client. And I also created and built Transform 21 again, redesigned the entire thing. And I have now created what I think is, or what I believe to be, the most comprehensive and helpful online membership and program that will help every single person in the world who wants to actually see it in action, to quit yo-yo dieting for good, learn about food, learn about nutrition, learn about environment, lifestyle, and how to create a really, really happy and healthy life for you and your family. And that is what the Ditch the Diet Academy is all about. So that's where we are today. I say we, because I have now got a team of people. Just a very small team, so I realised very quickly over the last few months as things have grown that I couldn't do this any longer on my own. I'm struggling with my mental health at the moment, like I said at the beginning, and so I have finally got my shit together, and I have a great team of people sort of on hand helping me out. That was a very scary thing to do because asking for help is not one of my strongest points. So, when I ask for help, that it's critical. So here's what's going to happen over the next few weeks and months. On the 17th of September, I will start a 4-year undergraduate degree in human nutrition and dietetics at the Glasgow Caledonian University. And I will not be able to sustain working full-time and having a business full-time and studying full-time. Studying dietetics and becoming a qualified registered dietitian in a few years' time is a huge priority for me. It's ultimately what I want to do because I know I can help more people by doing that. I'm also a massive science geek, and I'm obsessed with learning about the way that our body works and the way that nutrition and food works in our body. So, in order for me to do that, I'm changing the way that Walk the Talk Life works altogether. At the end of August, me and my team will be launching a brand new section of my website, which is called the Ditch the Diet Academy. This is a accessible membership, a low-cost membership that everybody can join, and you can consume and learn absolutely everything that I have ever learned myself and that I have ever taught anyone else in all of my courses via this membership. It's so comprehensive, and there is so much amazing stuff in this new membership site that I honestly can't even begin to go into it, and I might need to do a completely separate episode to tell you all about it. But I have put my heart, soul, blood, sweat and tears into this to make it the best on the internet. And so you can now access that. End of August we'll be having a launch for that. It's not ready yet. You'll have access to Transform 21. You'll have access to the Ditch the Diet Academy, which is a hugely comprehensive 20-week course. You'll have access to me. You'll have access to your own blog where you can blog your own journey and share it with people if you want or not. You'll have access to the forum that we have, and it's just going to be absolutely incredible way of meeting people that are in the same boat as you, that want to learn the same as you. But more about that at the end of August. You will only be able to join this in August, at the end of August, beginning of September. We are only going to have 2 intakes a year, one in January and one in September. And after that, it's going to close. And this is to allow me to study full time, to help people like yourselves who want to learn how to stop dieting, and create something that can help lots and lots of people. So that's where I'm at today. That's where we're going. And I wanted to explain everything from start to finish, because often when you look forward at how much you still got to do, everything can become very overwhelming and appear to be more difficult than it actually is. So when I look back, I think, wow, okay, that's pretty cool, Rachel. Pat on the back there. You should be proud of yourself. So what I'd like to do off the back of this episode is, whatever your goal is at the moment, whatever it is that you're thinking of achieving, I want you to do a few things. I want you to think, okay, right, where do I need to go? What is my big picture goal? how far have I come? Look back at how far you've come. Maybe you haven't done the work required yet. Maybe you need to look back and say, okay, I haven't done the work yet, but what do I need to do? Or maybe you just need to look at, everything that you have done and stop beating yourself up about all the stuff that you haven't done yet. So this episode has turned out a little bit longer than I thought it was going to, but I hope it's been useful for you and you've enjoyed hearing the very brief story of Walk the Talk Life, of Walk the Talk Fitness, of Walk the Talk Personal Training, and where we came from and where I came from and what I've been up to over the last 6.5 years. Big changes are coming for me. I'm moving into Glasgow City Centre in 2 weeks. I start university in mid-September, like I said, to study dietetics and human nutrition in Glasgow. And there are massive changes happening in the business as well. So that's what's happening. It would be great if you get in touch with me. I love to hear from the people who listen to my podcast. Remember, you can get in touch with me by email. It's Rachael, Rachael, at walkthetalklife.com. You can email me there. But the best way to get in touch with me is just to send me a message on the Walk the Talk Life Facebook page. So if you go to Walk the Talk Life, make sure you like the page. Same on Instagram at Walk the Talk Life. If you don't already follow me on Instagram, I put loads of really, really great content out on Instagram. So make sure you catch me there as well. But most importantly, please subscribe to the podcast. And if you feel like any of these episodes or this one in particular will help anybody else that you know, please share it with them on social media. I would really, really appreciate it. Or you can just pop your friend a message and say, listen, I think you'd really benefit from listening to this podcast, then please do. And don't forget that there are 32 previous episodes. We cover everything from last week we spoke about fussy eating in children. I spoke to a paediatric dietitian about fussy eating, to gut health, to stress, how to sleep better. We talk about nutrition, weight loss. Oh, there are so many great episodes in there, so make sure you don't miss it out. Get your subscription button clicked right now. It's totally free to listen to this podcast. And please get in touch with me via any of the social media channels that I've just mentioned. So that's it for another episode. I'll be back next Thursday with another great episode of the Ditch the Diet podcast. And until then, thanks very much for listening.